Ethan Cole had long grown used to swallowing his pride. As a 32-year-old single father raising his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, he worked 2 jobs, nights at a rundown diner, and days taking whatever construction or repair work he could find. His clothes often smelled faintly of grease and sawdust, and his boots were worn from years of use. That morning, after finishing a back-to-back double shift, he stopped at a small neighborhood grocery store to pick up milk before heading home. His shoulders ached, his eyes felt heavy, and all he could think about was tucking Lily in for her afternoon nap. As he stepped into line at the checkout counter, he noticed the man ahead of him, a tall police officer in a crisp navy uniform, his badge polished to a shine. The nameplate on his chest read Danvers. The officer was laughing with the cashier about something trivial, his tone light and self-assured. When Ethan placed his carton of milk on the counter, Danvers turned, gave him a quick once-over, and smirked. "Man, you look like you just crawled out of a ditch," he remarked loudly enough for the other customers to hear. "Ever think of getting a real job?" The words hit Ethan like a slap. He could feel the cashier's awkward chuckle as a flush crept up his neck. 1,000 retorts burned on his tongue. He wanted to tell this man about the long hours, about the sacrifices, about the nights he stayed awake worrying over doctor bills and school supplies. But years of experience had taught Ethan that some battles weren't worth fighting, especially in front of strangers. He forced a tight smile and simply replied, "Have a good day, officer." As he paid for the milk and walked toward the sliding glass doors, Danvers' laugh followed him, lingering like a bitter aftertaste. Outside, the sunlight felt harsh, the air too sharp against his skin. He told himself to shake it off. People like Danvers didn't know his story, and they never cared to. Still, the sting of the comment clung to him as he headed home. In his mind, this was just another example of the world underestimating him, another reminder that dignity was sometimes a luxury he couldn't afford. What Ethan didn't know was that before the day was over, he would be standing between that same officer and the muzzle of a gun, making a choice that would change both of their lives forever. By late afternoon, the summer heat had begun to settle over the neighborhood like a heavy blanket. Ethan had just finished patching a neighbor's leaky roof and was walking home with Lily, their hands loosely clasped as they strolled down the sidewalk. Lily skipped ahead, humming a tune from her school recital, while Ethan carried a paper bag with bread, eggs, and the carton of milk he'd bought that morning. The street felt peaceful, kids riding bikes, the smell of barbecue drifting from somewhere nearby, the hum of distant traffic blending into the background. That calm shattered in an instant. A sharp pop cracked through the air, followed by another, louder, sharper. Ethan froze. Gunshots. His instincts roared to life. "Lily, get down," he barked, yanking her toward the nearest parked car. She gasped, eyes wide, clutching his arm as they crouched low. His heart pounded in his ears, every sense sharpening. Just 2 blocks ahead, chaos had erupted in front of a small corner store. People screamed and scattered, diving behind whatever cover they could find. Ethan's eyes locked on a familiar figure, Officer Danvers, ducked behind the open door of his squad car, weapon drawn, exchanging fire with a masked man in the street. From Ethan's angle, it was clear Danvers was pinned down, his squad car shielding him from one side but leaving him dangerously exposed on the other. The masked man was closing in, firing in short, jerky bursts, his movements wild and unpredictable. Ethan scanned the scene desperately, looking for a safe escape route for Lily, but his mind kept snapping back to Danvers' vulnerable position. He could see the moment the officer realized his cover wouldn't hold, his face tightened, eyes darting for an option that wasn't there. Ethan's breath caught. Every rational part of him screamed to stay hidden, to protect his daughter first and let the police handle it. But then Lily's small voice, trembling, broke through the noise, "Daddy, is he going to get hurt?" Ethan swallowed hard, the decision crystallizing in that instant. He turned to her, squeezing her shoulder firmly. "Stay right here, no matter what. Don't move until I come back." Her eyes filled with fear, but she nodded. Without another word, Ethan slipped toward a narrow alley that led behind the corner store, his pulse thundering. He didn't have a weapon, only the desperate hope that he could reach the gunman before it was too late. The alley smelled of damp asphalt and garbage, but Ethan barely noticed. His boots pounded against the uneven ground, each step sending a jolt through his legs. He kept his body low, heart hammering so hard he thought it might give him away. When he reached the corner, he paused, pressing his back against the wall. Just ahead, the masked gunman was focused entirely on Danvers, who was crouched lower now, trying to reload under the relentless fire. Ethan's eyes darted around for anything he could use. A glint caught his attention, a broken broom handle leaning against a dumpster. It wasn't much, but it was better than charging in empty-handed. He gripped it tightly, knuckles whitening, and inched forward, the thud of his heartbeat nearly drowning out the muffled shouts and gunfire. The suspect took a step closer to Danvers, raising his gun, lining up the shot. In that split second, Ethan knew there was no more time to think. He lunged from the shadows, swinging the broom handle with every ounce of strength left in his body. The wood connected with a sickening crack against the gunman's arm, sending the weapon spinning across the pavement. The man staggered and turned, eyes wide behind his mask. Before he could recover, Danvers burst from behind the squad car, tackling him to the ground. The two men struggled, grunting and thrashing on the asphalt. Ethan dove for the fallen gun, kicking it farther out of reach. Danvers wrestled the suspect onto his stomach, yanking his arms behind his back with practiced force before snapping the handcuffs into place. For a moment, everything went still except for their ragged breathing. Danvers looked up, his chest heaving, eyes locking on Ethan with something between shock and gratitude. "You," he started, his voice hoarse, "you just saved my life." Ethan, still gripping the broom handle, shook his head. "Just did what needed doing." Danvers stared at him like he was seeing him for the first time, as if the man he'd mocked that morning had been replaced by someone entirely different. But Ethan didn't care about the officer's opinion, not right now. He only thought of Lily, crouched alone behind that parked car, waiting for her father to come back. Without another word, Ethan turned and ran, leaving the officer and the cuffed suspect behind as the wail of approaching sirens filled the air. By the time Ethan reached Lily, the flashing red and blue lights from the arriving patrol cars had turned the street into a strobe of chaos. She leapt into his arms, burying her face against his chest, her small body trembling. "I'm okay," he whispered into her hair, holding her as tightly as if he could shield her from the memory of what had just happened. Around them, officers swarmed the scene, securing the suspect and taking statements from witnesses. Danvers emerged from the crowd, his uniform dusty, his forehead streaked with sweat. Gone was the smirk from that morning, his expression now carried the weight of someone who'd brushed against death. He walked up slowly, almost hesitant, until he stood in front of Ethan. "Cole, right?" he asked, voice quieter than before. Ethan gave a short nod, adjusting Lily in his arms. Danvers swallowed hard, his gaze dropping for a moment. "About earlier today. I was out of line. I judged you without knowing a thing about you. And then you," he paused, searching for the right words. "You risked your life for me. I owe you more than I can ever repay." Ethan didn't respond right away, he wasn't used to hearing apologies from men like Danvers. Finally, he said, "You don't owe me anything. I did what anyone should do." But the truth lingered between them, not everyone would have. Danvers extended his hand, and after a beat, Ethan shifted Lily to one arm and shook it. The grip was firm, solid, and it carried an unspoken promise of respect. In the weeks that followed, Danvers kept his word. He stopped by Ethan's apartment, sometimes with groceries, sometimes just to talk. Lily took to him quickly, eager to tell him about her school projects and drawings. For Ethan, the visits were strange at first. He wasn't used to letting people in, but over time, the edges of their unlikely friendship smoothed. One evening, as the three of them sat on the stoop sharing ice cream, Danvers admitted, "You taught me something that day, about looking deeper before making judgments." Ethan didn't say much, just gave a small nod. In his heart, He knew that sometimes the people who start as your critics can end up becoming the ones you trust most when life takes aim.